This is a production of the Gold Arrow Podcast Network. Hello and welcome to the Gold Arrow Camp POG-Cast, a podcast for friends of Gold Arrow Camp. Throughout the year, we join you to bring your day some of what makes Gold Arrow special. Our goal is to help you have fun, make friends, and grow throughout the year, not just when you're at GAC. Since we can't get together in real life, we gather here around the virtual campfire. We have some of your favorite parts of morning assembly, like Joke of the Day. We also have interviews with experienced campers and some of your favorite counselors. We think it's a lot of fun, and we're glad you've joined us. This is episode 67, where I'm talking to one of our favorite international counselors who also happened to be a camper and a junior counselor. It's Mariachi. Mariachi's a really fun guy, and he's a guy who we've known at GAC for a lot of years. He came to us first as a young man, a camper from Mexico, and then he was a junior counselor. And last year, here in 2021, was his first year joining us on staff. He was a member of our Rocks and Ropes team. And Mariachi has a great energy and passion for camp. And it was really interesting and fun to chat with him about his experiences as an international camper and his experiences as an international staff member and how camp has changed his life. I had a really good time. I hope you enjoy this chat as much as I did. Here it is. It's me and Mariachi. Oh, welcome everybody. Say hello to Mariachi. Welcome to the podcast, Mariachi.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. You're certainly this season, but we don't have a ton of international guests, so it's exciting to have somebody from not technically overseas, but international on the podcast.
Yeah, it's always good to talk about camp. I always love it.
I'm right there with you. I get lucky. They pay me to talk about camp. All right. So I guess to start, why don't you kind of tell people who you are and what you do for camp?
Well, my name is Mariachi. This last year, I was a Rocks and Ropes counselor. In previous years, I was a camper and a junior counselor. I was with a youngest bear cabin, so that was fun. And overall, yeah.
You were, as you mentioned, a longtime camper. You spent a lot of years at camp. You came up through our leadership programs, but you're not from the United States originally. So how did you end up at Gold Arrow? Like, what did that process look like for you?
So the first time I went to camp or later as a recurring camp?
Let's talk about the first time first, and then we can talk about coming back, certainly.
Okay, so the first time I went because a friend of mine, his sister was coming to camp. So my friend was like, hey, come on over. Let's go. It will be fun. So I came and I loved it. So the next year, we told two more friends and my cousin. So we came and then I just kept coming and my cousin also kept coming. And then I wanted to become a counselor. So
it's just that easy. Obviously, you enjoyed your time at camp. Obviously, it had some meaning or you wouldn't have kept coming back. So I'm interested, what has like the overall impact of camp been on your life?
So when I was young, I was a very shy person. I had trouble talking to other people and communicating my ideas and everything. But then when I was 11, suddenly just go to another country. You don't know how to speak the language correctly, but go live with people you don't know and with your friends.
Right.
So it was always going out of my comfort zone. I always got to meet new people and I had to, because if not, what was I going to do? So it always made me a better person in my social skills and also personally. Like I got to challenge myself and things that everyone does. But each year brought a new challenge, like a new activity or a new objective I set for myself.
Now that you've moved on from being a camper and you are a counselor and you're in university and you're doing all of those things, when you look back, do you think that impact was, like, where would you rate that impact, I guess, on like things that impacted you as you became an adult? Was it like equal with school? Is it, like playing sports, that kind of stuff? Where does camp kind of slot in there, do you think?
It's certainly a different category
Yeah.
Because here in Mexico, I mean, there's certainly things that I do. I speak in Spanish, and I go to school with the same people every year.
Hmm.
I do have some differences, like I want to play lacrosse or a different sport. I do it, but I'm always in that place that I know and that I'm
Sure.
aware of. When I go to camp, it's always something completely different.
Hmm.
So it has shaped me in a different way. It's like I have two parts of my life, like my Mexican life
Yeah.
and my life at camp, which is very fun and it's always kind of different.
Okay, so yeah, you mentioned that. So let's talk a little about being an international camper, being an international staff member. Let's start with campers first, because I think that's maybe more interesting. What's it like to be a camper from another country?
So at first, you might be very nervous,
Sure.
like with not knowing how to speak the language. I don't know the activities I'm gonna do. Maybe I don't know the people. Maybe I don't like the food. I don't know,
Yeah.
whatever. But after you go, you just go with the flow.
Mm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself an easygoing person.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so this is the thing we're going to do today. Okay, then that's great. But you certainly do face challenges. Like the first time I went sailing, I didn't understand the instructions they gave me,
Mm.
but I went there and did it. And I was with another cabin mate who I didn't know from before.
Sure.
But that was a growth experience that
Yeah.
was very interesting because it was a big challenge. I didn't know what to do. I had to communicate with the other guy, and it was pretty fun. It ended up becoming one of my favorite activities at camp, and I just overcame that challenge. And I think that's some of the things that you get to do at camp that you don't get to do anywhere else as an international.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point, because I think, like, had you asked me that for domestic campers, I would have said kind of the same thing. Like, you're going to get put in situations where you're not comfortable and you're going to get to grow. And I guess it's really nice for me to hear that realistically the international camper experience is a very similar thing. I think it's amped up, right? The volume is turned up because on top of everything else, you're in a country that's unfamiliar to you, surrounded by people who are maybe culturally different. But at the root, it sounds like the experience is very much the same. You came back as a counselor, and we hire a lot of international counselors. Not a ton of them were former campers, so that makes you and your cousin a little different for us. But can you speak to what it's like for international staff members to work at camp? What's that experience like?
It's an amazing experience. Like it's something completely different and challenging, but also super fun. Like you get to meet a lot of people. Like you get to know a lot of the culture. Like simply talking to the kids, like some of the things you don't know because you didn't go through those experiences. But overall, you go through the same human experience and growing up and all of that.
Sure.
But it is also very fun, like to get to know the cities and the different people and how things work there. I think my experience was very similar to a lot of counselors because I already knew what camp was
Mhm.
and all of it, a lot of it. But yeah, I think that would be it.
Okay. And you already I like to ask for advice, but I think you already gave it, which is just like be open to the experience and participate in things. And that really, both for staff and for campers, I think that's valuable advice. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like try to get out there as much as possible.
Right.
I remember before when I was a camper, well, Willow is still a thing.
Yeah.
They also used to have the horses trail
Mm-hmm.
where you had to pick up the horse poo, feed them, then learn how to trot,
Oh, yeah.
which was super fun. And it was a great experience. I didn't know my grandfather was super into horses and that he actually rode horses before. But when I came back and told them about that, he was like, oh, yeah, I used to do that. So things I did at camp actually helped me bond here at home.
Wow. That's awesome. You obviously knew what you were getting into coming to work at camp because you'd been at camp for so long. But you worked alongside a lot of staff members, especially international staff members who had never been to camp. Having seen that, what advice would you give to international staff members coming to camp for the first time?
Research about camp, like know what it's gonna be about. Definitely lots of dances, lots of songs, lots of inside jokes that are a long time from camp.
Sure.
Like lots of people on morning assembly. We're gonna dance, move your body, or Footloose, or any of those songs. The international people, well, all first time counselors and internationals were like, "What is this? Why does everyone know it?"
Yeah.
And it's some of the camp stuff that bonds everyone together that is super fun. like you just have to get in the spirit, because if you have the attitude, you can do great. Like first timers, internationals, like Gatsby, or lots of people did a really good job, and they really got into the camp culture.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have those dances on our YouTube channel, right? You can go learn them, but it's a different thing entirely to be surrounded by 100 people who are all footloosing together, and you're like, chicken, kick. I'm in. That's interesting. We had a couple of staff members years ago who we hired from a country we won't specify, and like in Tweak, they were like, we can't stay, and I was like, why not? And like, it's too much. It's too much fun. And I was like, were we not clear in the hiring process that there would be like fun and dancing? And they're like, we didn't think it would be this much fun and dancing. I can't do it. And I was like, all right, like, you know who you are.
Yeah, actually, one of my campers on his Camper Evil said, like, counselors are just too goofy. They sing too much and tell too many jokes. And when Foxtrot told me that, I was like, that's surprising. Like, that's what camp is.
Yes, right? You were like, I did my job then? It seems like that was what I'm here to do, is to have some fun and tell some jokes. You mentioned bringing your cousin Lionel along to camp at some point. So I'm interested, what's it like getting to go to camp and then getting to work at camp with your cousin? Like, what's that experience like?
It's always been a lot of fun. Like, as campers, we would always be in the same cabin.
Sure.
As counselors, it was completely different because we were in different areas. I was in Rocks and Roofs and he was in Waterfront. So we definitely saw each other less. But when we saw each other, we'd be like, hey, how are you? How's everything going? Are you having a good time? Oh, yeah, this happened at activity, or this happened with my coach. It would be very good because you would have someone to talk to.
Sure. And
who would be in a similar situation, but wouldn't be with you all the time. So it would be nice. Okay. Yeah, it was fun.
All right, so you mentioned it. So let's talk about Rocks and Ropes. You are a Rocks and Ropes activity counselor. What is your favorite thing at Rocks and Ropes?
I would say my favorite thing is canyoneering. I mean, it's also the most challenging.
Sure.
Because it takes more training and it's a whole day activity where you eat outside of camp. But it's also the most rewarding. Like, you get to do that special activity at the waterfall, and the kids are super nervous there.
Right. Well, and
some of them can be very frightened.
Right. We should clarify, like, maybe people don't know about canyoneering. So what is the activity for a camper? What are they doing?
So first, you go out of main camp. Then you do kind of like a small hike upwards mountain, and then you rappel the side of a waterfall. Yeah. I mean, it's completely safe. Us counselors have them tied in a belay.
Right.
And they're also using the ATC, so it's pretty safe. But mentally, for the campers, they only feel the ATC and like they're moving themselves.
Yeah.
So they're like, if I let go, I will fall, even though they will not.
Right. Well, I think it's like the waterfall is 120 feet, something like it's taller than anything else we do as well, right?
I think it's not as tall as the second floor of the rope course.
Really?
But it is about 30 meters. Yes.
Wow. I thought it in my... See, I did it once, and that tells you what it does for your brain. Like, being up there, like, this is very tall.
Oh, yeah. But the good thing is that they get to do the practice round. Like, there's a small, maybe 7 meters practice round. And then they go on the one that's for real. But some of them get super nervous, and then you get to coach them. And in the end, when they get down, they're like super happy. And also on the walks to the waterfall and back from the waterfall, you get to talk with the campers. And they tell you about their favorite activities, what they want to do, what they're excited for.
Yeah.
And all about it. So it's fun. You also get to talk more with your co-counselor. So
yeah. So I think it's interesting to me because you work, like, you all of last summer were with what we call our youngest bears. So they're our baby bears who are very young. And you work at Rocks and Ropes. And for me, that's like two things where I'm like, nope. I couldn't imagine living with baby bears. And I go on the high ropes once a year so that I've done it. But that's a fear for me. What's it like for you? I think a lot of people, high ropes is a fairly frightening thing. Like, we see a lot of fear there. What's it like for you working with scared campers, and in some cases like scared head counselors or scared group counselors who are going to go through the activity? What's it like to work at a place where a lot of people express very openly their fear?
It's super rewarding. Like, it's super satisfactory to feel to see someone being frightened and then having lots of fun. And I think that's something that worked great with my cabin and the other cabins then went to high ropes. Like at the beginning, they're all super scared or to take the first leap or the leap of faith at the end of the second floor.
Yeah.
But once they do it, they usually love it. Like my cabin last session, well, all of the bird trapped wanted to go to high ropes, and we're like, "You're like 7 years old,
Right? Yes.
Why do you want to do that?"
Yeah.
But they just kept going. They loved it. They kept signing up for free time and all of it. So they really grew. And one kid that was super scared usually didn't go with the cabin. But then one day he ended up going, and like he faced his fear. So that was very good. And he grew out of it.
That's awesome. And I know that's like, I talked to Lyric on the podcast a couple seasons ago. And one of his things was, as a camper, he didn't like high ropes. Like he was scared of it. Because he worked through that fear and learned to love it. That's why he actually became a rocks and ropes counselor, because he wanted to help other people then work through that same fear, which I think is really impressive, honestly. All right, Mariachi. It's time for the speed round. 5 questions we ask absolutely everybody who comes on the podcast. Mariachi, what's your favorite camp song?
Oof. Footloose.
Footloose, outstanding answer. What is your favorite item on the salad bar?
Shredded carrots.
Bold choice. Around the campfire at night, mallows or popcorn?
Depends on who's cooking the popcorn.
Okay, so who has to be cooking the popcorn for it to be popcorn?
So there are some very good people, like Foxtrot and Ice, both my co-hosts were really good at it. But there are some people that
so
don't
if
have the touch.
Right, if Foxtrot and Ice are on the popper, he's having popcorn. Other than that, he's getting mallows from Chipmunk. Favorite lip balm flavor?
Watermelon.
Watermelon. Outstanding choice. And finally, Mariachi, what's your real name?
My name
We're all out of time. We'll have to have you back on the podcast next time to answer that question. Thank you so much for being on the podcast, Mariachi.
Thanks for having me.
In a world with far too much seriousness, far too much drama, we bring you something different. The joke of the cast. Do you guys know what kind of pictures turtles take? Well, they take shelfies. Get it? Because they have shells, because they're turtles. Ooh. These jokes do not get better, friends. Come to camp, come to morning assembly. I promise they will be just this bad. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on the Gold Arrow Camp POG-Cast. Really appreciate your time and love of camp, or your time and inquisitiveness about camp. You're finding out about camp. Whatever it is, we're glad you've joined us. If you liked it, tell a friend. If you didn't, send me an email and tell me what you'd like to hear on the podcast. You can shoot me an email, director@goldarrowcamp.com, and maybe we'll take your suggestions into consideration and improve the show. We're always looking to make it better. Share it with a friend, like it, rate it, review it on your favorite podcast app. Thank you so much to Mariachi for joining us on the podcast. Really appreciated his time and energy to come on and do that great interview to talk about such a wide-ranging list of things: coming to camp from another country, overcoming fears, and who makes the best popcorn in the bear trap. All of those were valuable insights. As always, I'm Soy, and I'll save a marshmallow for you.